You're listening to the Savoir Faire Audio Experience.
Are you ready?
The Savoir Faire Experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of the Savoir Faire Audio Experience. Thank you guys for listening, sharing, following. Really appreciate it. Thanks for sending in questions and ideas for us. Definitely appreciate that. Today's a really great interview. I'm really excited to talk to this person. He's not only an excellent drummer, but a brain cancer survivor that really is just kind of showing so many people some really strong motivation in life. And Alex Cohen is here. What's up, Alex?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Just 2 more cycles of chemo coming up, and then I'm finally finished. But
awesome. Yeah, good.
The next one starts tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, man. Well, I was listening to some of your music today, and I want to give people right out of the gate, I want to tell people where to go. So alexcohendrums.com is your website. Alex Cohen Drums NYC is your Instagram account. People need to go check you out because your story is super motivational. You are an excellent drummer, very skilled, been doing it for a long time. I'm super excited to learn a little bit more about your skill and what you've been up to. And then we also want to talk about just this survival thing with brain cancer and what you're kind of going through with that too. So I want to dive into your history first. I like to kind of build a timeline with everyone that I talk to. And so let's go back to like your earliest days. Talk to me a little bit about like how music became part of your world and how drumming started for you.
You know, I really wish that I could say that the music was a deep calling or it was a natural inclination. It really wasn't. I was a dweeb in middle school, and there was this more popular guy who played drums, and I thought maybe if I played drums, I could be cool like that. And the answer was definitely not. And I was terrible at drums, and I did not get this naturally at all. In fact, my first teacher literally told my parents when I was 12 to the lesson, and he was like, this kid just doesn't have it.
Oh, no.
But I kept at it for years, and I just was kind of all I did. I was determined to show people they were wrong. I mean, disclaimer, and this does feed into, I believe, the brain tumor story. So when I was a kid, I got diagnosed with autism. That was a big part of my childhood growing up. And that came with its own slew of challenges because that was back in the 90s when people didn't understand that, and there was no real accommodations for it. You were just kind of tossed to the wolves and then meant to fend for yourself. So, but that did create that sort of fixed interest, or circumscribed interest is what they call it. And what that did was that was like all I cared about was playing drums. And so that was just all I did. And that was sort of my singular focus. And it really remains so today. Being that I can, even on chemotherapy, on now going 11 doses of chemotherapy, plus brain surgery, plus radiation, and plus more chemotherapy during radiation, I'm still practicing every day and trying to clock in hours.
Wow, man. That's incredible, dude. It's like so incredible because most people would probably go through what you're going through and just not want to just rest, want to just chill out. And the idea that you're waking up still and getting on the drum kit and pounding away and still kind of keeping your craft relevant, that's a huge testament to who you are. I love that. So basically it was a popularity thing that got you into drums. Like you really wanted to just get more girls. Is that what happened?
Well, that certainly didn't happen. And the popularity thing failed too. But if anything, I did stick with it, and actually I used it. I found the drums was a good workout for me as a kid, and so that was cool. I mean, granted, my technique was atrocious, so it was way more work than it needed to be. But at the same time, believe it or not, that was where a lot of the double bass stuff started. I started playing double bass when I was very young. And I do believe that by just doing that for so many years, definitely kind of formulated those muscles from an early age and gave me kind of a little bit of an advantage there, because I was 13 when I got my first double pedal, and I just jumped right into it.
Yeah, so let's tell people that don't know what that is. So the big drum that sits on the floor in front of the drum kit, that's the bass drum. And you have two of them. So what I've learned from watching some videos and stuff, and even seeing some stuff with you on Drumeo, which is awesome, that's a huge platform,
Thank you.
is that you have this really cool kind of technique that when you hit these double bass, it actually sounds more like a bass line. Like if you think about like a marching band and all of those different drums hitting, you sound more like a bass line, like completed, instead of just having a single drum like on a drum kit. Like, so that's super, super cool that you have this unique style.
Yeah, that technique came from a lot of development. And I mean, plain and simply, I've just never really fit in per se. So I spent a lot of time, I was fine spending a lot of time alone in a practice room, just working on this stuff. And these techniques, and this is something that I emphasize to students and to now a lot of drummers of all levels, you know, from beginners to pros, these techniques take a long time to develop. They did for me, and this is not an overnight thing. You have to work very, very hard to refine your mechanics and teach your smaller muscles to activate in conjunction with one another. That we're not really used to reflexes like that and utilizing our reflexes in those ways. So there was definitely a lot of refinement of that. But one thing that I did gravitate towards, and I do think this was an autism thing, is the drumming coordination and independence aspect. I've always had kind of a knack for that. And that became a big part of my voice on the instrument, was the coordination aspect and the playing, really hearing multiple rhythms, stacking them, and using these techniques to really try and create multiple percussion aspects, like a percussion section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's super cool. Your style is very unique. People definitely need to go chase you down on YouTube and watch some videos. Like I said, you were on the Drumeo series as well, playing some stuff and doing some interviews there too, which is super cool. And that's what I was watching. But there's just some really cool videos on your website too, people can check out. Who are your inspirations in drumming, and kind of like who do you kind of like admire and follow and kind of keep track of in that industry?
So it really goes, I find that my influences had, let's say, phases. So my first influences were, once again, me trying to be cool. And the music that was cool at the time was Blink-182, Limp Bizkit, Korn, Eve 6, Linkin Park. So my original influences were Travis Barker, John Otto, Dave Silveria, and then more classic rock. There's stuff like Stuart Copeland from The Police, and more in that line. And then when I was older, I discovered metal, heavy metal, like and I'm talking like death metal, thrash, black metal. So a lot of my influences were my kind of earlier influences in that period were guys like Dave Lombardo from Slayer, Jamie Miller from Snot, Nick Barker from Dimmu Borgir, John Longstreth from Origin, Derek Roddy from Hate Eternal, Kai Hato from Nightwish, and a lot of people in that vein, in a much heavier vein. And then I went to college for jazz, so this was my next round of influences, I'd say. So guys like Billy Drummond, Bill Stewart, Eric Harland, Brian Blade, Dan Weiss, Ari Honig, a lot of New York jazz guys, and the great classic jazz guys, Max Roach, Elvin Jones, Art Blakey. And, you know, I've always retained my metal background, so I was still, listening to stuff like Meshuggah, Necrophagist. And my all-time hero, though, is Virgil Donati, who played with Planet X and Alan Holdsworth. And he's considered to be just a paragon of technique in musical drumming. And I've just always had this sort of general overlapping inspiration of Virgil being one, Vinnie Colaiuta being another, Dennis Chambers, Gary Novak, Steve Gadd, people like that. And I kind of developed with that for a while after college, just really combining all of them. And then I met my friends, Tobias Ralph and that crew of people. It was a group of people, kind of drummers, Scott Pellegrom, Ray Levere, Tony Lewis, Dean James, a lot of local New York guys that had really cool styles. And I was really influenced by. And then that also led to the people that I really associate a lot with now, who are guys, many of the new really top guys currently. So Justin Scott, Andy Prado Jr., Mason Goodry, who's doing my book Release Clinic, Breedex, Isaiah Weatherspoon, Zach Doobie, who's from Michigan, and a lot of the newer breed of drummers that have come up. And so I really try and stay focused on the language of the instrument and how it's developing, and especially as a teacher, try and remain relevant. And then I consider three pillars of the techniques that I've developed, especially in my hands, to be Ramon Montagnier, who I did a book with, Riccardo Merlini from Italy, and Yoni Madar from Israel. So I have a lot of influences, and I feel like they've gone through phases. But currently, I would say that the people that impact me are the people that I spend a lot of time with, and work with. So Mason, Justin Scott, Jonathan Colin Green, a drummer named Breedex, Isaiah Weatherspoon, a lot of people like them. So those guys have been really my.
That's so cool, dude.
Weird.
Honestly, it's cool to hear that you've gone through different changes, generations, and genres, right? So like the development of a young man into a man, and you start getting more sophisticated. You go from kind of rock, and which I love all those guys you mentioned, by the way. Everyone you mentioned, I love all of that stuff. But then to kind of settle into kind of being a jazz drummer and kind of understanding that, I feel like with jazz and even blues, and it doesn't matter what instrument you play in those categories, there's just so much more feeling and emotion built into that music. And so there's obviously this kind of like cool thing with heavy metal and stuff like that, but like this jazz vibe with drummers is so more unique. There's like the little raspy kind of play that happens sometimes, and I really love that kind of cool stuff. And the idea that you're mentioning some guys that I have heard of, which is cool, in the New York scene, that are drummers as well, jazz drummers that you kind of respect. That's super unique. I mean, those are great guys to look up to, work with, all of that stuff. So I want to talk a little bit about your drum kit and just putting it together, right? A lot of different drummers have a different perspective on what they want to have. Obviously, you have two bass. That's a huge thing for you. But what other pieces of your drum kit are kind of unique to your style?
Well, I worked through the Thomas Lang and Marco Miniman books during a very kind of dark period of my life, my mid-20s. I guess many people go through that. And I wanted to finish those books. That was my challenge. I felt like I didn't really have much else going on. And I felt like I just wasn't really making any progress. I was out of all the bands that I was in and put time to. So I worked to finish those books. And those books, to me, really changed my perception of the instrument, because there's a lot of ambidexterity involved. And I really chased that, like playing a lefty kit. So I use quite a few melodic placements and chimes to create melodies from that ambidextrous point of view. And as your coordination develops and you really develop movement in your feet and really move over the multiple hats, the top of the drum set almost becomes more like a keyboard or an organ. So I place things in various ways, like a lot of smaller cymbals close to the toms, in the sense that they're accents or part of a scalar setup. And I really like the sound of, I also like really sort of pristine fast decay in my cymbals. So I really like Pisces signatures. I'm a Pisces artist, so really like Pisces signatures. And I really like this very transparent, fast decay, clean sound. That's just, I've always liked that since I was a kid.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I love that too. I'm curious about this too. There's another layer of creativity with drums, right? And this is just a little bit of a naive question because I'm not a drummer. I'm a guitar player, but I
Hmm.
know instrument and I know how that kind of works out, right? So when you're practicing, when you're creating, when you're actually putting some stuff down, talk to me about like how you have to kind of play stuff. I mean, I know with the guitar, I'm always looking for new chords, but I feel like at some level, there's you just run out of stuff, right? There's just like I've learned so much about this guitar. There's just not enough for me to kind of like develop different rhythm or change or whatever. In drums, do you feel like that's also the same kind of aspect where you're kind of like I've tried everything I possibly could, or do you continually kind of learn new technique, new things, new sounds?
Oh, the drum set is such a young instrument. We've only scratched the surface. If
Okay.
anything, I think I've dug deeper because of which we'll go over the the seizure and the brain tumor. I definitely have dug deeper into the instrument, but the drums are such a young instrument. We don't even know 1% of what's possible. Okay, I'll say I know about maybe 5%, but if that, and I only say that because I knew 1%, and then I had this seizure and from this brain tumor, and then I think I was able to see things in ways that I never thought were possible, and I do believe that that was from uh, experiencing something that should not be experienced and kind of having your brain rewired or traumatized in a way that it almost feels like you hear about someone getting struck by lightning and they can play piano perfectly. I think we just haven't had that at drums up until now. So
Okay.
the drums are such a young instrument that I think when I go to practice, I think to myself, I want to be able to layer two incredibly complex hybrid rudiments, which involve very advanced hand and foot techniques, over each other in all different combinations of limbs. There are 6 combinations of limbs in total, not just top to bottom. You have bottom top, you have right left, right side to left side to right side, and then diagonals, right hand to left hand to right foot. So that's 6 different combinations of incredibly different hybrid rudiments that you can do. Then can you improvise using other hybrid rudiments and create parallel lines with them? So you're then taking all these different phrases and having to put them against each other in infinite combinations. There are 3,500 hybrid rudiments listed. I think there's probably 4,500 at this point. So if you could do 4,500 hybrid rudiments in all different combinations and at all different speeds, well, then maybe you don't have something to practice. But up until we hit that point, there's a lot.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. I mean, when you're getting creative and using the drums to kind of create original pieces, do you just sit down and start kind of tapping away and figuring things out before it becomes like an actual track, or is there like a, do you kind of hum stuff? Like I do that once in a while. I'll be kind of sitting on the couch and something will come to me, and then I'll kind of like hum it, and then I have to go discover how to play it. Do you kind of do stuff like that too when you're creating original tracks?
Yes, absolutely. For me, it's usually tapping. I'll tap my feet on the floor. A lot of my best practice time has been my wrists or sticks on a pillow or my knees and my feet on the floor. And that's the time when an idea is fresh and you have to convey it on such minimal. I mean, that's like, playing guitar with it's like playing an electric guitar with the sound off or something like that, but you're
Mm.
still having to translate it and hear it in your head. So that's usually what I do if I'm feeling creative that way. Otherwise, I'll sit down and think of overlapping melodies on the drums, which once again comes to this is where the brain tumor stuff happens, and I'll explain that.
Yeah.
So I'll think of like overlapping melodies, overlapping rudiments, ways to phrase them and push both and I'm a big proponent of efficient practice. So pushing technique, timing, foot technique, hand technique. And one of the ways that I do that, I'll put the metronome on the off beats when I'm working on this stuff. So I make sure that it's tight. I make sure that I proper form in my limbs. I practice it at different dynamics. I will move it between different sets of limbs. And in doing that, you're working so many facets of your playing that even in this time when the chemo kind of slows me down after a certain point, I can't practice all day like I used to. I still get a lot done when I practice.
Makes sense. Well, let's talk about that for a little bit because I want to kind of highlight some of the stuff that happened with you too. I mean, Alex, your story is incredible, man. Like the
Thank
survival system, the whole idea of going through what you're going through and still being able to grind. Talk to me a little bit about how you discovered that you had brain cancer. What was the process from, what happened? You said you had a seizure. Was that kind of what triggered the whole situation?
Yeah, but I had been having symptoms beforehand. And, usually even my neurologist said that you wouldn't see, you really don't think brain tumor a lot of the time when you're having this stuff. And I thought I was getting auras. And at first I thought this is too much caffeine. I got it when I first got COVID, actually on tour. And I thought it was COVID, long COVID. And I didn't really think much about it. But the thing was, these auras were actually micro seizures that were happening. But
what was that feeling? What was the aura thing you're talking about?
So it was like watching flashing lights come in front of my eyes, and then like my vision was like overtaken by these weird like flashing lights. I didn't realize they were seizures. I just thought it was, just because I didn't know. I thought it was just auras like other people get.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the only thing. And I would get tinnitus in my ears sometimes, which apparently is a symptom of a brain tumor. And at the time, I was so busy with my career and with doing all this stuff at Drumeo, stuff like that, I wasn't thinking about it. I just thought it was just something that happened occasionally or whatnot. And then one day, I was about to drive out to see Virgil Donati with my friend Kai Hato from Winterside. And suddenly the auras started happening. And I was 5 seconds away from hitting the gas pedal. And suddenly the auras started happening. But this time it was much more intense. And I woke up and I saw Kai's face. He was holding me and his face was in shock. And he had held me against the seat so that my head didn't slam into the steering wheel.
Wow.
And I would have died. And had I driven, I would have died. Now, funny enough, and this was, again, just a very, this has been a big part of this journey, was my father died 9 years ago from brain cancer. And my dad, his favorite band was Nightwish, which was the band Kai plays in right now. So the drummer from my dad's favorite band saved his son's life.
Wow, bro.
Anyway, so yeah, that was a rather miraculous occurrence. And so I went to the ER, and they gave me a CT scan. I could tell you that the weeks leading up to diagnosis to prognosis are the worst weeks of your life. There's nothing that can compare for it. What happened was the CT scan showed swelling in my brain. I had to wait 8 hours for an MRI because there was only one working MRI at the hospital, and I had to wait 8 hours for it, and they found this tumor. And basically, the way that it works with brain tumors is that you have like a 1% chance of getting this one type of tumor that only a few people are diagnosed with it, but people go on and live for 30 plus years with this. I've met people that have lived for 40 years with it.
Wow.
It's somehow it's malignant, but it is treatable, and it tends to respond well to treatments. There's a lot of treatments for it. Hopefully not chemo, because this has been not very fun, but there are treatments for it. But the vast majority of cases, you will end up with something called glioblastoma. And glioblastoma was what killed Neil Peart. It's considered one of the most deadly diseases on the planet. The average life of a survivor is 12 to 18 months.
Wow.
So I spent we knew what the tumor was, and they kept saying it wasn't glioblastoma, but again, I'd heard of people who'd gone into the hospital with quote unquote low-grade gliomas. The next thing they knew, glioblastoma. So that was in the back of my mind. And my friend, my childhood friend, his name was Owen Strong. He died of glioblastoma. And this is another amazing occurrence. Basically, my mother had been there in the hospital with me after it happened. She had met me, and she sent out an email to all of her friends, including Owen's parents. Mm-hmm. And we didn't know any surgeons. We didn't know any doctors. This was so unprecedented. And she just sent out an email like, please help. We have no idea what's going to happen. And Owen's parents responded and said, here is the email for the head of neurosurgery or neurology at Duke University, which is the top. You don't get better than that. The surgeons and doctors at Duke are the best. They're world renowned. And Owen's parents put in a call and said, we want you to make Alex your patient. You're going to make Alex your patient.
Wow.
So I went down to Duke, and they biopsied me. They biopsied this tumor. And originally we thought it was low grade, but then we get a week later. So you're waiting 2 weeks for the biopsy. It is the worst feeling, not knowing what it is.
Right.
A week into it, I got called and they go, you need to get surgery right now. This is not a low grade. This is a higher grade. So there is a 1% chance it is the higher grade version of the, this year's going to suck, but you'll live. Or it is the, you're on a clock, mm-hmm. and you're living on borrowed time. So I went down with, not knowing what it was. And I spent a night wondering if I should even get the surgery or not, because if it was going to be a high-grade astrocytoma, which is another horrible diagnosis, or a high-grade or glioblastoma, I'm not going to put people through this. If I'm going to just degrade and die after a year or 6 months, I'm not going to do what happened with my dad. Mm-hmm. So I went into the surgery on a leap of faith, and I woke up and they go, it's what's called an oligodendroglioma. And like, you're going to live.
Wow.
But granted, you're going to live, but the next year is not going to be pleasant. And so the thing was, now going back to the initial seizure and the discovery of the brain tumor. So when I got out of the first hospital, which was Columbia Presbyterian, I spent a day in chronic depression. I mean, who wouldn't?
Yeah, that's a lot.
And then the second day, I decided, let's just see if the urban legends can come true. Let's see what happens. And I sat down and I put the metronome on 2 tempos, and I could play 2 tempos at once in each side of the body. Mm-hmm. And suddenly I could play things that I never thought I'd be able to play. I mean, things that, should not have been possible. Things that would have taken, I don't even know if I could play them at any point. And just being able to improvise 2 separate polymetric lines in each side of the body, stuff that shouldn't really, as I've told people, should not really be possible.
Yeah.
And it's not just me that has said this. It's many of the top drummers in the world. The most technically advanced drummers in the world even had said this is unprecedented.
Wow. It's pretty remarkable to think about this stuff too, man, because it's like listening to your story. My father also died from a brain-related issue, and so mm-hmm. we have that in common. But it's listening to your story and just hearing about all the heartache, the kind of stuff that was happening through the process, and it seemed like there was just so many little miracle things that kind of lined up to keep you here. And I love that, because that just tells me that you're meant for this, right? There's something there. And I think about some of the science stuff that I do know. I know we only use 10% of our brains as regular humans in general. And there are people like that are super brilliant that they say like, oh, they're probably using like 12 to 15. But the idea that you had like this 1% aspect, as you say, of this skill with drumming and stuff. And then after this, I guess cancer was removed, right? I mean, you're going through chemo still, but like after this stuff was removed and you went through this surgery, all of a sudden you now have additional things that you can do with the drum kit that you couldn't do before. And that's just super unique to kind of think about that was a blockage for you, or that was just something that almost needed to happen to get you to the next level, which is so crazy to think about, that you had to go through this crazy medical situation to get you to that point. But like on the other end of that, it's so kind of unique that you kind of like gained a superpower in the idea of being like this killer drummer now. And
that's kind of what people have described it as. It's like a rhythm superpower. Okay, you know what? I feel, honestly, we're talking about miracles. I do feel actually, I don't really talk about this as much, but what I did, because some people just look at me sideways, but I'm fine just saying it. I at one point was I had no idea what I was doing in my I literally was sitting there like, what is my diagnosis? I am one word away from maybe trying assisted suicide. Like I am one glioblastoma, hearing that away. Mm-hmm. So I have a friend who's a medium, and I'm like, I'm gonna give this a shot. And I said, I'm like, if you can speak to my dad, I could really use his help right now.
Wow.
Like fully. And so she got back to me 2 days ago and she goes, here's what your dad had to say. This isn't going to kill you. You're going to have a long life, but you're going to have to get through this. This may be a blessing in disguise. You're going to help a lot of people. Wow. And I went on a leap of faith through surgery because of that.
Yeah, man. That's a great message. It's a huge message. And I mean,
yeah, and I know like some people like would look sideways, but dead serious. If you get into a situation where you think you have something like glioblastoma, you will find a way to at least figure out an answer. And that was the answer I wanted to hear. So I went in on a leap of faith. I woke up and it was true.
Yeah.
It's not going to kill me right now.
It's pretty amazing, man. Like, you're pretty impressive, Alex. I'm definitely a fan of your music and the stuff that you're kind of doing, but your story is so motivational and so cool, man. I mean, there is just so many people that need to know who you are and kind of follow you. I mean, your social media, this is kind of like, this is a different perspective. I'm going to go down a rabbit hole and say something here on our interview today, but like, these are the type of people, you are the type of people that people need to get inspired by instead of some stupid Instagram model. And so, like, people need to go on TikTok, Instagram.
Drummers.
Right, but just follow people that have real life stories where you can gain super unique motivation from that and share a story with other people instead of just kind of the superficial kind of stuff that doesn't really matter in the world, right? So, I mean, I always think about, this is kind of random too, but I always think about this. I always think about, like, when you think about humankind in general and all the things that we do in our lives, we work and we play instruments and we watch football on TV. We do all of these things. And there's a deeper part of me that's like, none of that stuff really makes sense to me because it's just passing time. There's like an end game for everybody. It's just us passing time. Why isn't everyone super focused on longevity? And so that's kind of a weird thing to think about out loud, but like that's something that I've kind of analyzed a lot about just humankind in general as a human species. So when you have stuff like this that happens where you literally you're facing death. I faced death too. I was a teenager. I fell off a 3-story house, had a huge head injury, and should have died. I should have died. But because of doctors and the people that were involved in that process, I survived. And when you come out on the other side of something like this dramatic that you went through, that I went through, you just look at life completely different. There's a different outlook. There's a different viewpoint on everything. And I think that's kind of a unique piece that I kind of appreciate in your story is that, you know, you gained superpower. When I fell off the house, I was 16 years old. I didn't gain a superpower. Maybe I did. Maybe I built resiliency and now I have thicker skin. And there's just all these other things that kind of came to me from going through that situation, right? But like your story is so unique that it really needs to be kind of told far and wide, man. Like I hope that in the next few years, as you're finishing out chemo, getting the recovery, doing what you need to do, that this just grows and grows and grows more. So I mean, that's something that I just want to put out into the universe for you, because it's just something that I feel like people need to be inspired by people like you, and a little bit less by the girl in the bikini, right? So like, there's just things in life that need to be changed a little bit, and that's what I appreciate about your story so much.
No, thank you, man. I mean, I think a lot of this story also was just finding the little wins when the world drop kicks you,
Right.
and just realizing that you find the little wins as you go through the worst year of your life.
Yeah.
That maybe the tunnel gets better. And once again, focusing on my dad's message. And there were a lot of surprises and things that happened. Reconnecting with my childhood best friend, who I hadn't spoken to in 20 years.
Wow.
Over 20 years. Moving to a new place, where I'm going to start a recording studio in New York with some friends, that's part of this kind of group of musicians. Writing the book, this third book, which it seems people are really gravitating towards, and it's been very well received. And just a lot of stuff like that, where I find little wins even when the world is just slugging you.
Yeah.
And a lot of family drama happened during this year as well. Just family issues. It was an unbelievably difficult time. And a lot of the time, I was really leaning on my mom for support during this, because chemo is so brutal when it happens, and I would go stay with her when it would happen. So I really owe her the most for this. And I that's just my dad made me promise to look after my mother, after he passed, and that's what I've been doing as well. So that I will continue to do that, even as I change my life. I moved to my new place. I will continue to support that and make sure that I check on her, and will really kind of be just be present in that sense, and not abandon the things that I learned through this.
Very, very cool, Alex. Well, guys, I want to give one more shout out so people know where to go. Go over to alexcohendrums.com. Check out Alex's skills. He's excellent at what he does. I love that you're in New York and you got a studio thing coming. I hope we can reconnect and talk about that project in the future. For those that like to get all your news from Instagram, Alex Cohen Drums NYC is Instagram. Go over there, follow Alex, get inspired. His story is great. Reach out and connect. Very open guy. Like, I'm sure you're in your DMs. You'll talk to people. I love that too. But yeah, man, we definitely have to kind of connect. I'm in the city next month. I'm literally like a couple weeks away from being down there for New York Fashion Week. I should drag you to one of these shows and we can get a drink and chill and talk a little bit, as long as your energy levels up.
That would be amazing.
I think it'd be super cool to connect. I feel like there's a kindred spirit type of thing. You and I really kind of have a life path that's very similar to each other. And I think that's kind of unique. So it'd be cool to, reconnect and stay connected.
Absolutely, man. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, cool, Alex. Thanks so much for your time, man. I really appreciate the interview.
Oh, of course, man. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.